Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NFL Divisional Round weekend and Full Press NFL Sunday once again on a Saturday. I don't mean to confuse anyone out there, and if anyone is confused watching the show thinking it is Sunday, I assure you it is not. It is Saturday. We have the first two of four Divisional Round matchups happening today with Jacksonville at Kansas City, and of course the Giants at Philadelphia. So first and foremost, good morning, good afternoon, Braden. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little snowy out right now, so it's kind of not what I expected today. So maybe we'll have some more unexpected things happen today. Who knows? But yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend, and obviously divisional round weekend, kind of that last full weekend of football before the season kind of ends. So it's an exciting weekend, but it's also kind of a somber moment as well.
Yeah, and to your point, this is the last, traditional, as close to traditional weekend of football as it is. Next week, it gets a little bit more serious, and then obviously we're on to Super Bowl Sunday. We have four potentially really good games. Obviously, Cincinnati and Buffalo are probably the marquee matchup, but you got New York and Philadelphia, a third meeting between the two teams, obviously division rivals. And of course, you got the classic in Dallas heading to San Francisco to end the weekend. But before we get into these games, obviously there's still potential there's a lot of potential, rather, for there to be a neutral site AFC Championship game. Obviously, something that was became a necessity once the scheduling became an issue after the Damar Hamlin incident, and the game was postponed between Cincinnati and Buffalo. However, there has been, based on the success of the sales tickets, there's been some very beginning conversations, and I'm not saying within the NFL, just on social media and kind of among people about potentially this being a opportunity for them to move to a permanent neutral site championship game weekend. And I don't think I've been against something more. The only thing I think I'm against more than that is the shootout in hockey. And anyone who knows me knows I think the shootout in hockey is the worst thing to happen to sports in the history of sports. And you cannot change my mind on that. This would be the second worst thing to do. And that, for so many reasons, would just be just a terrible decision and such an obvious money grab by the NFL, because the Super Bowl is a neutral site game, and I'm fine with that, because how hard it is to win in the NFL, having the Super Bowl be an experience that not just the fan base of the two teams can experience, but the entire league can experience. I think that again, that's important for the game. The conference championship round, that's not. I think it's more important for the fan bases that are actually involved, and not so much the national audience, because, well, quite frankly, there's nothing better than being up on that stage on your home turf, hoisting an AFC or NFC championship trophy and getting ready to go play a Super Bowl and saying goodbye to your fans for that season, because there's no better send-off than that. And obviously you win games on the road as well. But the point being, that opportunity would be lost. So I can't imagine too many fans are rooting for a neutral site AFC or NFC championship game. So I really, really hope this doesn't pick up too much steam.
Yeah, and I guess it's just I guess you just kind of recently modified the playoff field to add a seventh team and a third wild card. I almost wonder if you kind of really have to think about modifying the playoff field differently with maybe the seeding, or just maybe take kind of the seeding out of it. I don't know really what the best answer would be for that. I think it stinks for the number one seed that they'd potentially only have one home game before possibly playing in the conference championship, because obviously the other division winners have, at least some of them have a chance to play multiple home games. So there's just certain teams that I think need that home field advantage more than others. And you just see not just the impact inside the stadium, but of course around the city, and whether it's other athletes or other celebrities, kind of pushing that buzz around the city. It's something that's also kind of cool to follow. So I think it's just a lot of things that we're used to that's really starting to become normal. It would be really taken away quickly if we go to permanent neutral site games. And I just don't know logistically what would be kind of the best options that they would have if you kind of rotated around like the Super Bowl each year. If you We know how some players feel, I think, about turf compared to grass, and especially late in the season. So I think there's a lot of things from a player perspective that um, I can't imagine them being in favor of much of it.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it does. That I don't think it's going to pick up serious steam because I can't imagine there's going to be too much support thrown behind the idea of again, taking another home playoff game away from teams. Certainly one that's as high impact as a championship game can be. So perhaps this is just a little preemptive complaining, and I hope that is, or pre-complaining rather, and maybe nothing will come to fruition. And again, like I said, the idea that the ticket sales are high because it's a neutral site game, I think is a horribly misguided way of thinking about it. I mean, they're high because it's a championship game, and you have two very rabid fan bases, three if you can consider Cincinnati and all this, but two in particular in the Chiefs and Bills, who, of course, their fan bases are dedicated. I mean, the Bills travel no matter where they go. So yes, tickets are going to sell out quickly. I don't think it's indicative of it being a or a neutral site game. It's just a matter of the teams that are involved, and I think, um, yeah, I think that's the biggest point. And again, I hope the NFL doesn't do what they've done in the past and fix a problem that doesn't exist. Because well, we haven't seen it really become a issue, but don't forget overtime rules are different, and just because it isn't a hot button conversation right now, I thought it was kind of unnecessary to change the rules to begin with. So.
Right.
Um, all right. Anyways, enough about that. Let's just jump right into the games because we got four potentially really, really good matchups here. We'll start in Kansas City because they are the first game of the weekend. Now, this seems like the most lopsided of the four matchups, and I don't think it's terribly lopsided, but it just kind of speaks to how close I think the other three games will and should be. Um, to me, I'm looking at Jacksonville and I say, okay, do I think that they're poised for a Super Bowl run? No. Do I think that they can win this game? Yes, but I mean, a lot of things will have to go right, and this would be a rather big upset. However, I think they are fully capable of keeping this game tight, not only based on their play, but and we've talked about this what seems like every single week of the season. There's always that moment for the Chiefs where they just kind of, whether it's a boredom issue or just a situation where you know what you even good teams, really great teams, going to have a couple moments where they kind of sleepwalk a little bit. Um, so between those two factors, I'm looking at Jacksonville. I'm saying, okay, if they come out and they play the second half game or the game like they did in the second half last week, then you're talking about a pretty close competitive game where, I think at the end of the day, ultimately Kansas City is going to win this game. But I want to see where Jacksonville is heading in the future because, you know, a loss, I mean, obviously you want to win a game, but if they can go out and compete with this Kansas City team and really kind of give them a run for their money and maybe have an opportunity to win it late, um, you're talking about a team, I think, whose confidence, who's already, which has already grown immensely this entire season, I think is going to balloon heading into the offseason. And all of a sudden you're getting ready to add a guy in Calvin Ridley, and you have an opportunity to not only build from there, but you're not coming off back-to-back 14 loss seasons with a questionable head coaching decision. You're now coming off a nice little playoff run and the ability to say, hey, look, we got a guy at quarterback who can be the guy. We have good coaching. We have really good players. You free agent, why don't you come over here? Why don't you come bolster our defense? Why don't you come jump in and help advance our offense to make it the actual elite unit that I think we see is its potential? You have the elite quarterback, you have some nice weapons that are only going to get better, and you have good players pretty much across the board that you can obviously improve. Um, Again, I know I'm talking more about Jacksonville's off season right now, but I think again, you go out, you compete in this game, win or lose. You go out and compete in this game. I think that's going to go a long way for how this team takes the next step moving forward. Because very soon we could potentially be talking about 4 divisions with the 4 teams at the top being tier 1 level teams.
Yeah, and I think you also have to be excited about kind of what the division outlook looks like in the AFC South. Again, you still have to go out and take care of business in that regard. But Indy and Houston, I mean, don't really have quarterbacks of the future right now. We still don't know who they're going to hire at head coach. And then Tennessee, I mean, it looks like Mike Vrabel kind of won the in-house battle between John Robinson. So it'll be interesting to see what he can kind of readjust to there in Tennessee. But this is a division that's kind of wide open. Again, you still got to go out and take care of business. But I think you combine that with kind of the youth of this team and just how they bought into Doug Peterson. There's just a major chance to kind of continue to see this on an incline. And I think there's a lot of guys that just they want to win. Obviously, a lot of guys coming from college programs where they accomplished a lot. So I think it's kind of just that perfect storm of the opportunity is really only just beginning for this Jaguars team. And you mentioned Calvin Ridley. I'm really fascinated to see what he looks like next season coming back, and really just this team. I think the more you can kind of continue to surround Trevor Lawrence with even more pieces, I think the better off they're going to be heading into 2023.
Yeah, and exactly. And I'm glad you brought up the division because it's an opportunity waiting for you. Because I think Vrabel won the Titans power struggle. I don't see them as a team on the incline for sure, and quite frankly, probably very much on the decline heading forward. And then Houston and Indianapolis, 2 teams that, I mean, they don't have quarterbacks, they don't have head coaches, they don't, you know what I mean? There's a lot of questions. So there is an opportunity for Jacksonville to compete and be one of those big 4 teams in the AFC. Because I think we all kind of assume that the division leaders right now, the Buffaloes, Cincinnati, Kansas City, they're gonna have a good chance to kind of maintain that level of success for the foreseeable future. And Jacksonville wants to be a part of that party. So I'm assuming you're taking the Chiefs today.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was kind of interesting looking back at the first meeting this season where the Chiefs, I think they were up kind of 20-7 before Jacksonville kind of started to get into a groove, and Jacksonville could have been even closer at the end of the first half. I think they had 2 missed kicks. Obviously they started the game off with that onside kick and then got a couple of turnovers after that on some fumbles. I'm really interested to kind of see how the defenses do. I think obviously the offenses is where both teams' storylines are going to be, but I think quietly these defenses have started to really play well at the end of this season. We know the Chiefs, I think 55 sacks was second most this season. So they sacked Lawrence 5 times in the first meeting. Chris Jones, I think, was just half a sack away from tying his career high this season. So they're really starting to put it together as a pass rush. I think you're seeing since Trent McDuffie's return, the secondary really starting to become more well-rounded. And then I think with Jacksonville, I mean, this is just a fast defense. They're, I think, deeper than most people kind of realize. So even though the offenses I think are going to be the story, and there are probably going to be a lot of points, I think these defenses don't rule them out from having strong days. And I think the Chiefs will win. I don't really have a good score prediction right now, but I think they'll be very close kind of to what the spread is right now.
Yeah, and like I said, my big thing is if you're getting second half Jacksonville from last week, I think it's going to be a fairly close game, but not necessarily one that's going to threaten Kansas City. Just I think again competitive.
Right.
All right, so second game of the day, New York Giants at Philadelphia. Now the Eagles all season, pretty much from start to finish, the best team in the NFL, certainly record wise. They did stumble a little bit down the stretch. Now, again, you can pinpoint the injury to Jalen Hurts as being the catalyst for that. And I would say, yeah, absolutely. That's you lose a player that, at the time you could argue was the front runner for MVP. Yeah, you're going to take a little bit of a step back. However, you're still, he's only played once since then. And I think there is still a little bit of uncertainty on again, he doesn't have the playoff experience that you can lean on like you can with some of the other quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes or obviously Brady, before he got eliminated. But, he doesn't necessarily have that playoff experience to lean on. So there's not that big of a experience factor between the two teams. And I always pause when it's a meeting between divisional round opponents because you play a team 3 times. There's really it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Let's just put it that way. And so far, Philadelphia is looking for that three-peat. I just happen to think, and this is something that I woke up on Friday because I did these picks on FPC Radio Live. I woke up on Friday and I was just like, you know what? I think the New York Football Giants are going to win this game. And for a lot of reasons, I say, well, they're playing better football, I think, than the Eagles. At the very least, I think the Giants are playing their best football right now because we both picked them to beat Minnesota. I was still more impressed than I thought by watching them beat Minnesota last week. So maybe that's giving me a little bit more confidence in picking them this week. But I feel like Philadelphia, great team, no doubt about it. But there's something about New York. There's something about the Giants, and it's not just big, it's not their quarterback, but you talk about a player who's kind of Josh Allen light, and light in the sense that, well, he throws a lot fewer interceptions than Josh Allen, but can still do a lot of the same things, just not to that level. It doesn't mean he's, better than Josh Allen. It just means that there's a lot of similarities. And when you consider, well, who's the head coach? Well, it's Brian Daboll. Who got the most out of Josh Allen and elevated him to this level? Brian Daboll. So who's to say that he can't get Josh Allen ready for this game? And not to mention, I mean, they just have a good team. I mean, they don't necessarily, they're not the best at anything, but they have a solid defensive front. They have a decent defense and a, an offense that can certainly compete with some of the best teams. So I look at this as, well, they're coming in with house money here. There's nothing that the Giants, I mean, this is just all icing on the cake for them. And the Eagles now, having not, I mean, I don't want to say not having championship experience because obviously they won a Super Bowl a few years ago, but primarily the core of that team is not there anymore. Different quarterback, different coach, different, many different skill players. So again, there's not a lot of that to draw off of. And I think the pressure might cause them to come out very tight in this game. And I think that's a big mistake because I think the Giants are going to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I think the Giants are going to upset, and you're going to be talking about the Giants in the NFC Championship game. As crazy as it sounds.
I almost want to go with you. I feel like I should. There's just something to me, I guess, about maybe Jalen Hurts and his style of play against this defense. I think you kind of see the Giants are very kind of dense up front. I just kind of worry about if the pass rush doesn't get home consistently. We know how much Wink Martindale can be successful in kind of dialing up blitzes and disguising them. I just think ultimately the difference for me for the Eagles offense, not just having Hurts mobility, but I think just being able to kind of hit on some of the deep shots he's hit on this season. I think he's been one of the best deep ball passers throughout the entire season. So I just wonder if it's going to be, maybe the style of play the Giants have been winning with. I just don't know if I don't know if it's going to completely, demoralize Philadelphia, maybe like it did Minnesota, and force them kind of into a different style of play. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think it'll be tight, but I'm just kind of thinking Jalen Hurts for me is going to be the biggest difference in this one to get Philadelphia to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think as good as Philadelphia is, that they go as Jalen Hurts goes, and that's not to say that's not to diminish anything else or any other player on that team, but look, the quarterback's the most important position in the league. Right. I mean, of course, they're going to be more responsible for wins and losses, and the reality of it is, elite quarterbacks, very rarely are the reason why you lose games. They may
Hmm.
not have great games, but they're very rarely the reason why you physically lost this game. So when people complain about quarterbacks getting too much credit for wins and not enough credit for losses, well, there's a reason for that. And it's not just an unfair, you know, oh, the quarterback this. No, it's because again, the reason great teams win consistently is because of great quarterback play. Doesn't mean they're the only reason, but it's the biggest reason. And usually those teams don't lose often. So it's very rare that when they do lose, it's primarily on the quarterback. And people can't seem to understand that. So in this case, it's the same deal with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
This team won 14 games out of 15 with Jalen Hurts as their starter. It is not a coincidence that despite having this essentially the same lineup in those two games with Gardner Minshew, a very serviceable backup, that they went 0-2. So again, this is this is why quarterbacks are so important. So I agree with everything you say. I mean, I would not be surprised if the Eagles win this game. I just for some reason I'm just getting this funny feeling. I don't know if it's just something saying the Giants or it's like a kidney stone. I don't know what it is, but it's a funny feeling, and it's just a feeling I'm getting in my gut right now that tells me the Giants. So, all right, let's shift to Sunday because again, I think the biggest matchup for a lot of reasons this weekend is going to be Cincinnati at Buffalo. I mean, it seemed only fitting that we got this matchup considering, well, we got just a portion of it earlier in the season before the tragic situation with DeMar Hamlin. But I look at this game and I really went back and forth here. This was a tough one to pick. I picked all three of the other games first because I was like, I gotta think about this one more. I think Cincinnati is probably the better team across the board. I do think when push comes to shove, I think Joe Burrow is a better quarterback, but that's not. Yeah, the margins are so razor thin with him and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes too. I mean, the three of them. I mean, they are the class of the AFC. And I think on any given Sunday, like that's the thing. Like I could not tell you in 2 years who I think is, or who's going to be the best quarterback among those three. I really don't know. It could be any three of those players. So the quarterback matchup, I think it favors Cincinnati. Overall, offense defensively, especially with the absence of Von Miller and kind of what the Buffalo defense has kind of struggled at down the stretch, I think Cincinnati is better. But this Buffalo team just knows how to win games. I just can't get past that. I know it's not always pretty. I mean, they really let Miami hang in there somehow. But at the end of the day, they put up 34 points, and despite the turnovers, and I know that's a big focus when it comes to Josh Allen right now, and rightfully so. You can't expect to win a lot of games by turning the ball over a lot. But I look at this Buffalo team. I don't know if it's some sort of team of destiny feeling to it or just battle tested in a way. This team has over the last couple of years went from elite offensively to elite defensively to now they're just pretty good across the board. I mean, pretty good's an understatement. They're really good across the board. I just think most importantly, I think they know how to win better than they did the last couple of years. And I think that's going to pay dividends in this game because it's not going to be easy. It's going to be scrappy and very likely, I think it's going to come down to the last possession. But I like Buffalo in this one at home to head back to the AFC Championship game.
It's kind of really interesting when you mentioned Von Miller, how much his absence has kind of impacted the Bills. I can't remember the exact numbers. I think Buffalo was top 10 in pass rush win rate when he was in the lineup, and they've dropped to like I want to say 27 or 28th without him. Doesn't mean they still can't create pressure on occasion, but just totally non-existent. It seems like now throughout periods of games. But on the other side, the Bengals down three starters. We know Jonah Williams and Alex Kappa are both out. So it's kind of a weird dynamic there where you have Joe Burrow who can kind of hold on to the ball too long at times. And we know Buffalo, I mean, they rotate their entire defensive line most of the time. So you don't really know who's going to be coming at you on certain snaps. So it's definitely going to be kind of a weird dynamic to see how that plays out for both teams. Cincinnati really has struggled to run the ball as well this season. So you're talking about a group of wide receivers in Joe Burrow that I just think they're going to have to single handedly kind of go out there and outscore Josh Allen. And I, like you said, I agree on Burrow probably being the better quarterback right now. For me, I think it's going to come down to the defenses, and I favor Cincinnati slightly there. So that's why I had to go Bengals. I think we've talked about just how razor thin it is for the top of the AFC. There's something to me about, I think, the pressure Buffalo's facing, and maybe it's just until I see them come through and maybe get to that AFC Championship game round. I have to go with the opponent, and I've kind of believed the Bengals have been a slightly better team for a little while now. So like you said, it would not shock me if it comes down to the last possession, but I have to go Bengals here.
Yeah, the Bills are really kind of in a. It's not identical, but they're kind of like the Colts of the early 2000s, where the talent was undeniable. They had elite offenses, and despite the revisionist history, yes, they had some really good defenses. But they just couldn't get over that hump, and for a number of reasons. One, there was an obvious foe standing in their way. In this case, Buffalo has Kansas City. The Colts had New England. And, it was, you were starting to question, is this team ever going to get, let alone win a Super Bowl, even get to a Super Bowl? And, it finally obviously kind of came through and in a very poetic way, so to speak. The Colts broke through against their biggest nemesis. So if Buffalo can go on and win this game, and assuming Kansas City does, they're going to have an opportunity to kind of exercise those demons a bit. And perhaps that's what they're going to need. But I'm right there. Like, I can't disagree with anything that you said. And that's why I think this game, obviously everyone's hyping it up, because it really is. It's a pick'em.
Right.
It really is. I mean, and it's not just because, like, we have pick'ems with bad teams all the time where we're just sitting there like, both of these teams suck. I have no idea who's going to win. In this case, both of these teams are great. So it's a good time to have a pick'em. So I like Buffalo in this, but again, it would not shock me if Cincinnati won this game. And quite frankly, I don't know what is a better matchup, or at least a worse matchup for Kansas City, whether it's Buffalo or Cincinnati.
Right.
Either way, I think if you go into next weekend against either of these teams, I think it's going to be obviously a far greater challenge for Kansas City. But we'll get there next week. And part of me just kind of wants to see Jacksonville and Cincinnati win. So just to see the mayhem and the fact that we won't get a neutral site championship game. So I think we can all sacrifice this 1 year just so that happens. So, all right. Sunday night, we're going to end. And Chris Rucker, if you're still listening, earmuff, because I hate to tell you, San Francisco is going to absolutely roll in this game. I do not see this being a close game whatsoever. Last weekend was such, for me, if I'm paying attention to the Cowboys, I'm looking at the Cowboys and I'm saying, I feel like last week was an outlier. This offense was, look, they performed, and I don't want to take anything. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, because I'm not gonna try and say that, oh, Dak got lucky or anything like that. But I think there was a natural inflation with how bad the Buccaneers defense played. I talked earlier in the week about how poorly the Buccaneers offense was getting open. They recovered on 60% of their pass plays throughout that game, which was by far the highest that weekend. But on the flip side, their defense wasn't much better, because they were allowing Dallas to get open at a absurd rate. And I don't see that happening against San Francisco. Not one bit. I think San Francisco is by far a much better team, obviously, but they're not going to allow 4 straight scoring drives. And certainly they're not going to allow the Dallas wide receivers to get as open as they were against Tampa, which was, well, pretty much every pass caught was essentially 5 yards cushion, or in the case of the absolute blown coverage, a wide open walk-in touchdown in the end zone where no one around you. So I don't see that being something that's going to help the Cowboys this week. So how do I look at this game? Well, I look at it like the Cowboys played for the majority of the second half of the season, and certainly the majority of the season with Dak after he came back healthy. And that is, they are a roller coaster of a team who could look like one of the worst teams in the league for large chunks of period and then somehow pull it out. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to get down early. And I think that's going to be all she wrote for Dallas, and San Francisco is going to roll in this one. So, Rucker, like I said, if you're still listening, I apologize. I hope you're not listening and you didn't hear my very accurate, I think, portrayal of what's going to happen today.
Yeah, I guess it's not a exact carbon copy, but I kind of equate Dallas maybe to what we saw from the Dolphins most of this season, where they're just continually kind of playing tricks on what you think they are. So I just think that inconsistency is why I have to pick the 49ers here. Brock Purdy, we saw a few nerves and a few missed throws last week, but even if he's, having some of those pop up again this week, there's so many more answers that the 49ers have to outscore Dallas in this one. You can obviously have Deebo Samuel run the ball if he doesn't need to catch it. They have a tremendous running back duo. Of course, Christian McCaffrey has looked like the best running back in the league once again since coming over to the Niners, and then Elijah Mitchell is back healthy. So I just think there's a lot more different avenues that San Francisco has to win this game if one part of their game struggles. And Dallas, kind of like I said, it's just too much of an up and down team and too inconsistent of a team to really, I think, buy into what you exactly saw against Tampa Bay. I think, we saw just the reaction of what the Cowboys kind of got from that win over the Bucks. And I don't know if it's beating Tom Brady or just beating a bad team. We see people change their mind on certain teams quite a bit. And I can't really fall into that trap right now with Dallas going, given how I thought about them going into that wild card game. So I got the 49ers. I don't know if it'll be a blowout, but I think they'll find a way.
Yeah, I'm saying blowout. So all you Cowboys fans, you can come at me on Twitter if you if I end up being wrong. Which, hey, guess what? You know what? I'm wrong every so often. I just don't think it's going to be about this game. So, all right, that's going to do it. You might as well not watch the games because we pretty much told you what's going to happen. No, obviously they should be great tonight. Or today and tomorrow. I'm looking forward to a lot of it, and hopefully by next weekend we're going to be talking about two really, really exciting conference championship games. And if I get my wish, you're going to have Kansas City and Buffalo and the Giants and the 49ers. So, all right, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please follow us on Twitter for all the updates throughout the games at Full Press NFL. And, of course, head over to fullpresscoverage.com to check out all the latest and greatest. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And once again, enjoy this weekend and cherish these last few games of the NFL season. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.